Thank you so much, Frank, and welcome to all of you to Fort Mason Center and to this wonderful celebration of Bonnie and her legacy as we wrap up this really amazing journey to present the survey, this first survey of her work as an artist. I just wanted to, before I get into my presentation, I wanted to thank Frank, Mary Jane, and Tanya in particular for this incredibly ambitious undertaking to sift through Bonnie's archives, to organize them and present them in such a cogent way that has resonated with so many people. To be perfectly honest, I didn't really know what to expect in terms of the reception that this exhibition would get from the community, and I was frankly blown away at the opening day and the hundreds of people who came out on that first day, a rainy day in January, to see the exhibition and to hear their stories about how they were personally touched by Bonnie, how their communities were transformed by her work. And it's, to me, it's really a powerful testament to the impact that a single person can have during their life through their work and their legacy. And the process of developing this exhibition and Frank's descriptions of Bonnie's work really made me ponder the parallels between what was happening here at Fort Mason Center in the early 70s, at the same time that Bonnie was doing her initial work at the farm, Portable Parks, and to try to draw some parallels and make some sharp contrasts between those two cases, while wrapping up showing how her legacy, perhaps indirectly, has influenced how we activate our campus with public art outdoors, and largely due to Frank's work as director of our arts program. So I'll just quickly go through some slides and present my take on Bonnie and her legacy at Fort Mason. So first of all, as Frank mentioned, in terms of the background of Fort Mason Center, this was the primary port of embarkation on the West Coast, really from 1910 until its closure in 1962. This image just shows what our campus looked like at its peak. Not really a park-like setting at that point in time, bustling with buildings, ships, trains, cars, cargo, etc. I don't think it's snow. No, I don't know what it is, but yeah, it kind of looks like it though. This was really the primary port where troops and supplies left for the Pacific Theater during World War II, 1.5 million troops during World War II alone, and 25 million tons of cargo. So again, not your typical backdrop for a park. These quotes really struck me in kind of reviewing the amazing catalog and descriptions of Fort Mason contemporaneous with Bonnie's early thinking on the farm. These two quotes are interchangeable. On the top, Bonnie's describing the intersection at what is today Cesar Chavez Street and Potrero Avenue that formed the backdrop of the farm. And this quote on the bottom from the then chief planner at the National Park Service describes a barren landscape filled with Hondas that occupied every inch of our parking lot in 1969 after the Army had decommissioned the base. And are like the buildings surrounding the farm, broken windows, occupied by pigeons, really a very derelict landscape. After the base was decommissioned in 1962, there were a range of crazy ideas for what to do with this campus, from a juvenile detention facility, a tennis club, an ice skating rink. Ultimately, 30 groups came forward with proposals to the National Park Service after this property was transferred to the Park Service with ideas for how to use this campus. In some ways, it has echoes of what Bonnie was doing at the same era in terms of finding ways to transform, really, pavement into park space. Here's one wild vision that the General Services Administration, then owner of the land, had for our campus and the upper campus, which is to turn it into an office park. You can see the piers there on the right, so they would have kept those apparently, but dramatically different vision for what this place became. And ultimately, as you can see here, in 1972, this property was transferred to the Park Service. Representative Phil Burton introduced legislation to create Golden Gate National Recreation Area, the nation's first urban national park, with Fort Mason Center really as the centerpiece of a whole string of parcels that comprise Golden Gate Park. So that was the easy part, turning this into a park. Then came the conversations about what we do with the landscape here. As you can see, it was and still is overwhelmingly acres of parking lot. This is one of the early concepts. I apologize, it's not a very good image, but you can see here design competition in the late 70s proposed introducing an avenue of palms, turning asphalt into grass, installing solar collectors, and heliographic towers throughout our campus. Of course, this never came to be, and there are reasons for that. Given the history of our site, we are in a National Historic Landmark District, and our landlords are the National Park Service. And as part of that designation, the Park Service really is adamant that we maintain the historic appearance of our campus and have limited interventions in terms of removing what was here when the Army last occupied this site. Of course, many people deride that approach to preserving our campus, including, I thought this was a great quote from Alan Temko, the architecture critic from the Chronicle in 1978 when this design competition happened. As he says here, the Park Service's approach to the mediocre Army layout at Fort Mason is as reverential as a penance at Lord's. So he was really just appalled by the lack of vision that the Park Service had at the time. So in many ways, the historic designation is one of the primary reasons why this place was not transformed in a similar way as Bonnie did at the farm. So take a step back from Fort Mason. It's interesting to consider what was happening with Bonnie's life and her projects. These are just some images from the farm, which I know you're all familiar with. And as the early incarnation of Fort Mason Center was dealing with the bureaucracy, the Park Service and elsewhere, Bonnie was writing grant applications, partnering with the nascent Trust for Public Land, negotiating with the city, negotiating with property owners to gain control of the land that became the farm. And really in a few short years, it's incredible to me that she was able to establish the farm and realize her vision. Likewise, portable parks, which of course predated the farm, to me is especially relevant to later artistic interventions here on campus, and I'll explain why. So I'm just going to quickly go through a series of slides here, and these are not all inclusive. These are just more recent examples over the past decade, really mostly all during Frank's tenure as director of our arts program, in terms of ways that we have tried to transform, albeit temporarily, our asphalt landscape into recreational uses, art, and engage the public in a way that we haven't before. That's right. And this predated my time at Fort Mason Center, but certainly is just so inspiring. This outdoor skating rink right by Equator Plaza, in partnership with the Church of Eight Wheels, and very colorful, obviously in stark contrast to the asphalt backdrop and vanilla color of our buildings. I would say, though, and from my perspective, one of the most crucial moments in our kind of evolution as a campus came through the pandemic, which is when I started here as president and CEO in 2021. One of the things that really inspired me when I was a candidate for this position was how the staff here adapted and were in a nimble way to continue to make Fort Mason Center a safe gathering space for community. And we did that in many ways through artistic programming. The most prominent and most beloved example of this, I would say, was our Fort Mason Flicks drive-in movie series, which went for a few seasons here during the pandemic, including after I started, which really was one of the few communal activities that was available in the depths of the pandemic. And I should go back and note, this era, the threats posed by the pandemic, kind of ushered in a new relationship with the National Park Service as well, which have been essential partners in allowing us to experiment with new ways to activate our campus in recent years especially. The Park Service gave us permission, in many ways encouraged us to experiment with new outdoor artistic interventions on campus, Flicks being the most notable, but they were a close collaborator in all of the examples featured here. This is not an artistic intervention, but certainly is as we've seen throughout the city, throughout the country, and something that would not, frankly, have been allowed previously on our campus, but for the necessity of supporting our businesses, was the having permanent outdoor seating structures. And of course, Bonnie originally experimented with this in portable parks, so there's echoes of that in our recent experience. And the seating at our restaurants was intended to be temporary. The Park Service has since allowed us to have that as a permanent feature on campus, which is great. Another example of, because we could not do anything indoors effectively for a few years, was a new outdoor mural corridor between buildings B and C. And we've done 2 mural series to date in the mural corridor, with another opening later this year. This is Krista Oropeza's piece that opened last year in 2023. As mentioned by Frank, another example of kind of creative way to use our campus outdoors was through the flag installation. We actually reinstalled the historic flagpoles on Piers 2 and 3 to enable the Colleen Smith installation to take place. And now we look forward to making this a recurring installation with different artists going forward. And it really provides an opportunity for the casual visitor to our campus to see art, experience art every day. Foresight's Guardhouse program is another example of a new program that started during the pandemic, although we had an installation before the pandemic in the Guardhouse. This is a recurring installation in partnership with Foresight Foundation, one of our residents here on campus. 3 times a year, they program the Guardhouse. This is the most recent installation that just came down actually last month, and a new one is being installed right now. It's just a wonderful little jewel box. And then, of course, I'll conclude, things come full circle. In my essay for the forward in the catalog, I kind of speculate what would have Bonnie done if she were let loose on our campus. And it's, of course, the garden to transform hatred into love, in conjunction with the exhibition by John Bela, seeks to kind of channel, perhaps, Bonnie's influence in her past projects. And I will say that this has been one of the most popular aspects of the exhibition, where we have weekly programming in conjunction with the farmers market. And Frank and Mary Jane have been warning me that be ready for pushback when we start to take down this outdoor garden, which is temporary as part of the exhibition. So, but maybe the Park Service, by seeing the success of this, I can't help but feel hopeful that they'll be more receptive to future innovations like this. So I will stop there. Thank you again. Enjoy the symposium today, and thanks for being here today.